I once met someone who was just as perfectionistic as I was, and I did not think that was possible. But 5 hours later, I had proof. Her name was Mary. At the time, I was living in Sydney studying Chinese medicine. In Australia, when you're an international student, you have to pay double the school fees. So I had approximately 17 jobs. I pretty much said yes to any job that was offered to me. One day, a friend of mine told me about an old lady who was looking for a cleaner for her house. 2 hours every Saturday. Sure. So I contacted her. Her name was Mary. She seemed nice enough on the phone, but very efficient. You know, a straight to the point type of lady. We agreed that I would go there the following Saturday at 10 a.m. for 2 hours. Now, before I tell you what happened in Mary's house, let me ask you something. Do you ever walk into a room and immediately see everything that's wrong with it? The crooked artwork on the wall, the tiny line of dust sitting on top of the plug socket, the little pom-poms on the curtains, and the threads are not hanging quite right. Nobody else sees them, but you do. Of course you do. You see everything. You also notice when someone's tie is slightly off center, and you have to physically restrain yourself from adjusting it. Never mind, the guy is a complete stranger. You notice that girl sit down without adjusting her skirt first, and so it wrinkles underneath her, and you think, you spend 5 minutes putting mascara on one eye, then the other. Now the first eye has less. Hang on, add more. Now it has more than the other eye. Start again. And since we're talking makeup, nail polish. Let's talk about nail polish. You get closer to the edge. Closer. You want it perfect. Close. You touch the skin. So you grab a cotton bud with nail polish remover on it. And you fix it. And then, satisfied, you lean back and bam, you smash all the other nails against the table. Perfection is a fragile business. But perfectionism isn't only about aesthetics. It's also about fairness. You walk into a party and straight away you notice the shy person standing alone. You feel bad, so you go and talk to them. And now, congratulations, you feel responsible for them for the rest of the evening. Someone brings a cake to a gathering you're attending. Nobody eats it. Everyone eats everything else except the cake. The person who brought it must feel terrible. So you go and get a slice. And you also force your partner to take a slice, even though he hates coconut, because fairness must prevail. In other words, your nervous system is in hyper alert mode all the time. And if you're like me, you may have asked yourself at some point, how do I turn this off? Honestly, I don't think you can. You don't turn it off. You simply learn that your brain notices things. Lots of things. sometimes beautiful things, sometimes completely useless things, and sometimes terrifyingly specific things. Which brings us back to Mary. So that Saturday morning, I took 2 buses to get to her house in Coogee. The journey took about an hour and a half, which was not ideal for a 2-hour job, but I needed the money. Mary opened the door, and in person, she was even more efficient than on the phone. No small talk. She showed me the rooms I had to clean, the kitchen, the sitting room, the bathroom, her bedroom. It was immediately clear that the job had to be done properly. So I got to work. 10 o'clock, vacuuming, scrubbing, polishing. 11 o'clock, still scrubbing, still polishing. 12 o'clock, still polishing. I had begun to suspect that Mary might also be a perfectionist, which made the situation slightly dangerous because when two perfectionists meet, at 1 o'clock, I was cleaning the window in Mary's bedroom with newspaper because Mary insisted that newspaper gives the best finish. So I cleaned the window, stepped back, streak. So clean again. Step back, still a streak. Clean again. Step back. Another streak. At that point, I was basically in a full-on battle with the window. At 2 o'clock, at last, I moved on to a glass cabinet in the living room. In that glass cabinet were about 20 small porcelain ornaments. Mary's instructions were very clear. Clean each ornament individually and then put them back exactly where they were. Thankfully, this was the era of early mobile phones. So, because I was very clever, I took photos of each shelf with my tiny pink Motorola flip phone. Remember those? I then removed all the ornaments, washed them gently in lavender water, dried them, and then I began to reconstruct each shelf, one ornament at a time, while staring at the minuscule photos on my phone. This little porcelain boy goes here. This duck goes here. The shepherdess goes there. At 3 o'clock, 5 hours later, I was finally done. I was also starving. I went to find Mary. She inspected the bedroom, took a step back, tilted her head, said nothing. Kitchen, same inspection. Bathroom, same inspection. Then we entered the living room. She moved a chair to check underneath. She slid her finger across the cupboard to test for dust. And then finally, she reached the glass cabinet. She stood there for quite a long time, long enough for me to start panicking inside. She frowned. She opened the cabinet door, reached inside for the small porcelain boy, and nudged it 1 millimeter to the side. I had met my match. Now, the good news is that Mary had absolutely no problem paying me for 5 hours, even though the job had been supposed to take only 2. I think she knew. Her and I belonged to the same club. But what strikes me now about that day isn't the porcelain boy. It's the fact that when I left Mary's house, I was so hungry that I could barely stand. I had skipped lunch. I had worked my ass off, hadn't even gone to the bathroom. And I still had an hour and a half bus ride home. Now, this may sound trivial, but think about it. How many times have you ignored your own basic needs just because you were not quite finished with the task yet? How many times have you skipped lunch because you needed to check the document one more time? How many times have you delayed going to the bathroom because you had to fix just one more detail? Perfectionism has a strange side effect. It convinces you that everything matters. Every streak, every crease, every tiny porcelain boy on every shelf. And when everything matters, eventually something stops mattering. You. And that's the real problem. Perfectionists think that they are serving excellence, but very often they're actually serving anxiety. And anxiety is a terrible boss. It will gladly have you skip lunch, skip sleep, skip breathing, just to make sure the little porcelain boy is exactly where it belongs. And so now I'm curious. Have you been adjusting any porcelain boys lately?